Not as did Lady Jessica. Jessica actually think when she chose to bear a son. Leto II God-Tyranny was a dam against their tide. Balanced on the not as Razor's myth, but as annihilation. Twisting Leto fate to Roman II God-Tyranny was a stall the dam against their tide. For a millennium balanced on the not as Razor's myth edge of divinity, twisting Leto fate to Roman II God-Tyranny was a stall the dam against their tide invaders. Path was not a crown, it was a told shield fate to stall the invaders, a lie told to the stars to buy time. Yet the matters, their hunger was not chaos, it was a shadow of humanity's own hunger. What does survival demand when the only choice is to become the monster? The Honored Matres did not seek conquest, they sought extinction. Their genetic warfare aimed not to rule, but to dissolve human consciousness into a hollow husk. Leto II saw the future, a species unmade by its own biology. His golden path became the only answer. For 3.5 millennia, he bore the weight of prescient sight, trading short-term agony for long-term survival. Tyranny, yes, but the alternative was oblivion, the cost, freedom, the gamble that sacrifice could buy time. Leto's rule was a scar on history, a wound that never healed. Yet in its depth, humanity endured. What price does survival demand when the self is the currency? The God Emperor's body, chitin and flesh, a living covenant with the sand trout. His reign, a millennial chess gamiach move etched in blood and starlight. The famine time was no accident. Leto II starved his own kind to starve the matter's ambition, a parasite's logic turned against its hosts. He became what he hated to outlast what he feared. The Honored Matres would have devoured humanity, as the malevolent always do. Leto's tyranny was a gilded cage, its bars forged from his own agony. He traded comfort for caution, plenty for preparedness, every scarcity a shield, every scar a sentinel. What ruler endures 10,000 years? Not a god, not a man, a necessary abomination walking. His path was never golden, it was gilded in the alloy of survival. A price paid in time, in tolerance, in the slow erosion of self. The Matres called him monster. They were right, yet in his shadow humanity breathed, unclaimed, unconsumed, free. The Honored Matres did not seek conquest, they sought oblivion. Their blades cut not flesh but memory. A gene splice to unravel the human soul, a plague that would not kill, only erase. Frank Herbert wrote, the Honored Matres' genetic warfare was not merely biological, it was a weapon designed to unravel the very fabric of human identity. Pause. What is freedom, if not the right to endure? Leto II saw the future, a species reduced to a single face, a single thought, a hive of ghosts. The golden path was not a tyranny, it was a quarantine, breeding diversity, dispersal across stars. 1,000 lifetimes spent building walls no one understood. Leto knew hatred would follow, he wore it willingly. The name monster is a currency, he paid in full. The Matres called themselves liberators, they offered order. Leto offered chaos, a scattered seed, a fractal of selves, each generation a counterstroke. Their war was not of armies, it was of time. The Honored Matres had centuries. Leto had millennia. He knew the cost, he paid it. Do the architects of survival deserve mercy? Or the silence of a species erased? The golden path was a cage. But its bars were made of survival. Leto's rule was not an end. It was a beginning wrapped in a scar, a wound left to heal into something new, something free. The dunes breathe, beneath boots of iron and flesh. The sand whispers in frequencies only the sand trout hear. Leto II compound eyes catch the glint of buried water, the pulse of a planet holding its breath. The spice matrix hums a hymn older than Paul Atreides' visions. Here in the marrow of Arrakis, the cycle is etched into stone and star. Spice maker dies, sand trout rise. Life is bound to death as water to thirst. A scout shaheed kneels, sifting grains through calloused fingers. The sand wind carries the stench of decay and melange, a perfume of rebirth. Leto watches, his voice a canyon of overlapping echoes. You think I am monster. You are right. But the Honored Matres would call me infant. Their ships scar the sky like vultures. Their greed is a drought that would drain the well of humanity itself. Leto's body, half insect, half god, feels the weight of millennia crown of thirst and memory. In the stillness between heartbeats, he recalls the first sand trout that fused to his spine, its bioluminescent tendrils weaving his pain into the dunes. Pain is the thread. The Honored Matres hunger for spice, but they do not see the ritual. Each grain harvested is a prayer, each death a seed. Leto's rule is the sacrament, his tyranny the hymn, the sand stirs. 1,000 sand trout surface, their bodies glinting like shattered opals. They are not creatures. They are cogs in a faith older than the Padishah Empire. Leto sinks into their tide, his voice merging with the wind. Asterisk, I am the knife that cuts the cancer. The scar that becomes the skin. Asterisk, above the stars wheel on, blind, unknowing. They do not see the balance, the tyrant who became ecosystem, the cycle that became theology. Leto's reign is not an end. It is the desert learning to thirst, to hunger, to asterisk become asterisk. 269 words. The Bene Gesserit archives hum with the scent of old ink and sealed wax. By oil lamp light, sisters trace genealogies etched in bloodlines converging on Leto's birthright. Their plan, hatched in the age of the navigators, was no mere stratagem. It was a hymn to entropy, a calculus of suffering. Every abomination bred, every empire toppled, a bead on a rosary counting humanity's endurance. Leto's reign is not a cage, it is a vaccination. The boy king, now a god Gola with horns and scorpion's glare, compels billions to kneel not through want but through terror. His voice carries the static of prescience, a radio tuned to 1,000 futures. In the spice-fouled air of Arrakis, he carves order from madness. He mothers carves tears dry in the order from madness shadow of his edicts. A father's whisper, asterisk forgive him, asterisk dissolves in the howling wind. Leto knows the price of memorized weight of every death he weaponizes. The Honored Matres return not as villains, but as mirrors. Their wrath is the same fire the Bene Gesserit stoked, now unshackled. Leto's tyranny is the scab on a festering wound. How many lives for one future? The sisters ask, as they burn their own scrolls to light the way. Leto's golden path is no utopia, it is a scar, a bridge of bones. And when the Matres ships fracture the sky, their screams will echo the same old song. Asterisk, survival is a blade you must hold to your own heart. Asterisk, the desert learns to thirst. The desert learns to asterisk wait asterisk. The desert had learned to wait, the desert had learned to blade, yet here betrayal blooms. Siona Atreides and Idaho Gola plunged a blade into Leto II heart, not for vengeance, but for asterisk choice asterisk. A fracture in the golden path. Did their rebellion rend the shield or mirror, the Honored Matres' own hunger for undoing? Leto's rule was a cage, yet its bars were meant to hold back a tide of annihilation. He traded sovereignty for survival, only to find defiance even among his chosen architects. How does one forge unity from millennia of fear? How does one prove a sacrifice wasn't a surrender? The Honored Matres thrived on division. Leto's path was their antithesis. Yet Siona's rage and Idaho's resolve whisper a truth colder than sand. Survival without will is a death of another kind. Was the golden path a triumph or a tomb for the soul it sought to save? The desert waits. The desert asterisk wonders asterisk. Leto II did not crave dominion. He forged a prison his own, and Humanitisto starved the Matres' hunger. The golden path was not a throne, but a chokehold. For 3,000 years he starved populations, fractured realms, and buried the spice to scatter humanity's spark. The Matres sought a hive, he gave them dust. Every tyrant, every war, every whispered lie was a stone in the dike. Was this the price of survival? Civilizations bled dry, yet the seeds endured. He traded empires for embers, certainty for chaos. The Matres would have grafted humanity into a single, blooming corpse. Leto's world was 1,000 fractured fires, each too small to conquer, too wild to tame. The Honored Matres called him a monster. They were right. They were asterisk wrong asterisk. Their tyranny sought harvest, his sought rot. A seedling crushed beneath a boot is as dead as one choked by vines. The desert does not judge. It remembers Leto's path was a scar, not a monument. Yet in that wound, humanity awoke not as gods, not as slaves, but as a storm of selves, unnamed and countless. The cost was time, the cost was flesh, the cost was a god's patience. But the cost of asterisk not asterisk was extinction. The sands still shift, the story is not over. Leto II rule was not a theft of freedom, but its redefinition. He bound billions to a single will not to dominate, but to delay. The golden path was a shield bent across millennia paradox carved in flesh to intercept the Honored Matres storm. What is freedom, if not the capacity to endure its own negation? His tyranny was not a corruption of power, but its inversy burden born to ensure power never again could consume humanity. The anti-messianic truth gnaws, some chains must clank to prevent the anvil of extinction. The Honored Matres came not as monsters, but as mirrors. They too sought to break the cycle, though their path was ash and Leto's was blood. Both understood the universe demands sacrifice. To call him a savior is to miss the math of his equation, a god's patience spent in dividends of suffering, interest paid to time itself. Dissent festered always, but dissent is a luxury Leto could not afford. The golden path's price was the erasure of choice, yet within that erasure, choice survived a seed buried under centuries of sand. What tyrant willingly becomes the fulcrum of a species' rebirth? Leto's legacy is not in the throne, but the threshold he held. The sands still shift. The story is not over. Leto's tyranny was a gambit. The famine timea weaponized scarcity-starved competitors into collapse. What does a species sacrifice to outlast annihilation? The golden path was no utopia. It was a chokehold on chaos, a thousand-year stillness against the matter's tide, their rage. A mirror to his methods, both burned lives to forge outcomes. You call this preservation or prison. Freedom's price tag is etched in ash. The famine's hollows still whisper, how far would you go to keep the dark at bay? Leto bled centuries to buy a future. Now the threshold trembles, what stands next? Leto II rule was not a theft of freedom, but its redefinition. He bound billions to a single will not to dominate, but to delay. The golden path was a shield bent across millennia paradox carved in flesh to intercept the Honored Matres storm. What is freedom, if not the capacity to endure its own negation? His tyranny was not a corruption of power, but its inversy burden born to ensure power never again could consume humanity. The anti-messianic truth gnaws, some chains must clank to prevent the anvil of extinction. The Honored Matres came not as monsters, but as mirrors. They too sought to break the cycle, though their path was ash and Leto's was blood. Both understood the universe demands sacrifice. To call him a savior is to miss the math of his equation, a god's patience spent in dividends of suffering, interest paid to time itself. Dissent festered always, but dissent is a luxury Leto could not afford. The golden path's price was the erasure of choice, yet within that erasure, choice survived a seed buried under centuries of sand. What tyrant willingly becomes the fulcrum of a species' rebirth?